Hello, it's Ian here from crackmaths and welcome to this question and answer video where we are going through 20 questions on powers and roots, 10 practice base, 10 scenarios. If you want a link to the questions that I'm using, you can find that in the description, or otherwise you can pause the video and work along as I work along too. Okay, so let's have a look at this first question. This first question says 2 to the power of 5 plus 3 to the power of 2. Okay, so 2 to the power of 5 means 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 times 2. And 3 to the power of 2 means 3 times 3. So let's do 3 to the power of 2 first. That's nice and easy. 3 times 3 is 9. And then let's work out this one here. So 2 times 2 is 4. 4 times 2 is 8. 8 times 2 is 16. 16 times 2 is 32. So here we go, we've got those, and then 32 plus 9 is going to give us 41. So our answer to question 1 is 41. Okay, right, let's have a look at question 2. And this question says, what is the square root of 64 plus the square root of 49? Okay, now hopefully you might know that the square root of 64 is 8 because 8 times 8 equals 64. So therefore 8 is the square root. And then 49, you'll hopefully know the square root is 7 because 7 times 7 equals 49. If you didn't know them, that's okay. It's something that you'll need to learn for your GCSE. But we can actually always, as long as it's the calculator paper, you can also use the calculator to check these things out as well. So let me clear that. And so say, here we go, 64 square root equals 8. Okay, the square root buttons, this one here, it looks like a little tick. Well, it looks like what it looks like up here. And then square root of 49, let's clear that. So 49 square root equals 7. Okay, then what we need to do is we need to add them together. So we do 7 add 8, which is 15. Now if you'd really wanted to, you could have typed the whole thing in on the calculator as well. That would be fine as well. So let's look at that. Root 64 bracket plus the square root of 49, and hopefully this will agree with us. Yay, 15. Okay, great. Let me move the calculator away and let's have a look at the next question here. So the next question, we should be able to do this one without a calculator. It's 5 squared take away 4 squared. So remember, the power of 2 squared means 5 times 5. And then the 4 squared means 4 times 4. Okay, so 5 squared is 25. Take away 4 squared. 4 squared is 16. Okay, so now we're looking at 25. Take away 16. And then 5 take away 6 we can't do, so borrow from the 2, we've got 15. 15 take away 6 is 9. 1 take away 1 is 0. So the answer to this question is just simply 9. Okay, I should underline the 15 as well. Okay, right. We could also check that on the calculator. In fact, let me just do that. That is something we could have all typed in one go as well. So I could have typed in here 5 squared. You see, with this x to the power of 2, it'll the button will be very similar to your calculator. It will just be in a different location. And then plus, oh no, not plus, minus 4 squared. There we go. So you can type all that in and that gets us 9 as well. Right. Let's have a look at, let's have a look at question 4. So question 4 says, what is the square root of 81 times the square root of 16? Okay, so the square root of 81 is 9. The square root of 16 is 4. So this question is really 9 times 4. And that will equal 36. Right, question 5. Question 5 says, what is 6 squared plus 2 cubed? Okay, so 6 squared is 6 times 6. So this is like 6 times 6 plus 2 times 2 times 2. Okay, so 6 squared gives us 36. That's the result of 6 times 6. 2 times 2 is 4, and then times 2 again is 8. So 2 cubed equals 8. And then if we add these two numbers together, I believe we get 44. Okay, but let's just do a quick check of that on the calculator to make sure it agrees. Okay, so here we go. We've got 6 squared plus 2 cubed. Yes. Okay, right. Great. Let's move on to the next question. Oh, here we go. Right, let me get rid of the calculator. Well, actually, I think we're going to need the calculator for this one. So let me just scroll this one up and then we can have some space as well. So this question says 6 root 20 plus root 45. Round your answer to 2 decimal places. Okay. Yes, neither of these, 20 or 45, are square numbers. So neither of them are going to have nice square roots. So what we're going to do is we're going to just type all of this straight into the calculator, write down the answer, and then we'll round that answer to 2 decimal places. So here we go. Square root of 20 plus the square root of 45. Okay, here we go. So here is our answer. Just double check that we've written that right. Root 20 plus root 45. Yeah, so our answer is going to be 11.180333989. But then we want it to 2 decimal places. So that means we're looking at this. Okay, so if we've rounded to 2 decimal places, we've rounded to 11.18, or it's larger than that. So if we were going to round it to the other decimal place, we'd round it to 1.19. The midpoint of these numbers here is 11.185. Now, if I just focus on this bit here, 1803 is larger than 18, but not as large as 185. Okay, I could actually, let me just put some zeros here to make it look like all of this bit that I've just highlighted here. Okay, so let's compare this bit. So if we were putting 1800 in order with 1850, well, 1803 would fit on this side of these two. So this thing here rounds to 11.18 because that is what it is closest to. So let me just get rid of that. And then just put a note here to say to 2 DP, 2 decimal places. Right, let's look at this next one here. Okay, so this one we could potentially probably do without a calculator. So I will remove it just to make sure that we get the practice of that. So 10 squared is 100 because that's 10 times 10. Divided by 2 cubed. So 2 cubed is 2 times 2 times 2. 2 times 2 is 4. 4 times 2 is 8. So this is 10 divided by 8. So I'm going to actually write this as a fraction and cancel it down. Okay, so 10 divided by 8, they're both even numbers, so they can both be halved. So that's going to be 50 over 4. And again, 50 over 4 are both even numbers, so can be halved. So that's going to be 25 over 2. Right, 25 over 2, they're not both even numbers, but we still can kind of halve this. So let's think about it. It's going to be, well, half of 20 is 10, okay? Half of 5 is 2.5. So the top bit, when we half that, it becomes 12.5. Half of 2 is 1, but we don't really normally write that. So the answer to this question is 12.5. And that's what we will give as our answer. Okay, right. Let's have a look at question 8. So question 8, it's a square root one again, but we don't have square numbers, so we are going to need to use a calculator because no one is expecting anybody to know the square root of 50 and the square root of 32 without a calculator. So I'm going to just type all of this in one go. So we've got root 50, close bracket, very important thing to do, otherwise it will put everything under the same square root. plus the square root of 32. And here we go. So this is equal to 12.7279206. And we're rounding it to one decimal place. So we would either round it to 12.7 or 12.8, because it's gone past 12.7 already. It's larger than that. So the midpoint of these two numbers here is 12.75. Okay, well 12.72 is less than 12.75, so that means that the answer to this question is 12.7 to 1 dp. Okay, we'll highlight that to make it nice and clear, and I'm just going to get rid of that. Okay, right. Question 9. Let's have a look here. We've got question 9, and it says 3 squared plus the square root of 100. Oh, no, it doesn't. It says 3 to the power of 3 plus the square root of 100. So 3 to the power of 3 is 3 times 3 times 3. Well, I'll write that down. 3 times 3 times 3. 3 times 3 is 9, so this is like 9 times 3. 9 times 3 equals 27. The square root of 100 is a square number. It's 10 squared gives you square root, it gives you 100. So the square root of 100 is 10. So this question becomes, what is 27 add 10? 27 add 10 is 37. Okay, right, next question. We have got 10, oh no, reading it from afar. We've got 2 to the power of 4 times the square root of 36. Okay, so 2 to the power of 4 is 2 times 2 times 2 times 2, which is going to give us 2 times 2 is 4. 4 times 2 is 8. 8 times 2 is 16, so this equals 16, this first bit. And then the square root of 36, well, 36 is a square number. It comes from doing 6 squared, so 6 is the square root of 36. So I'll just write that down here. The square root of 36 equals 6. So this calculation becomes 16 multiplied by 6. Okay, and then I'll just do my little lattice method here to work this out. 16 and 6. So 6 times 6 is 36. 1 times 6 is 6. We add up down these lines here, so we're going to get 6 and we're going to get 9. So therefore, the answer to this question is 96. Okay, and of course you could have done this on the calculator. Let me roll that up. So just to check what we would have done, if we were doing it on the calculator, we would have done 2 to the power using this button here of 4. Okay, so that was the XY button, this one, because they can't give you a button for everything, but they do give you a button for some of them. And then we're doing multiplied by the square root, so that's the one with the 2, of 36. Here we go, and that's 96, and that agrees with my answer. Perfect. Right, let's look at the scenario-based questions. Okay, right, here we go. Let's just roll this out the way for a little bit. So question 1 says, you invest £500 in a savings account with 5% interest each year. To increase the amount by 5%, you multiply by 1.05 for each year. What would you multiply £500 by to find out the amount after 2 years? Okay, so this is a repetitive multiplication. That's why it's featured in the powers and roots section. So what we've got here is we've got our amount, and then we multiply it by 1.05 to increase it by 5% in the first year, and then we multiply it by 1.05 to increase it by 5% in the second year. So effectively, what we're doing is we're multiplying it actually by this. So this is the single value. So we can think about this as 1.05 squared. Okay, and then if we want, we can work this out on our calculator. Okay, so here we go. 1.05 to the power of 2. There you go, and that equals 1.1025 as our value that we'd multiply it by to increase it by 5% twice. Okay, right. Let's have a look at question 2. Okay, so question 2 is here, and it says, a square patio has an area of 36 meters squared. What number multiplied by itself equals 36? Use a square root to find out the length of one side. Okay, so we've got a square patio like this. It's got an area of 36 meters squared, and we want to find out one side length, and it's telling us what to do. It's saying use a square root to find out that. So in order to find the side length from the square, we do the square root of 36, and the square root of 36 is equal to 6, and it's meters because that was meters squared. Okay, right, let's have a look at question 3. Question 3 says, a population of bacteria doubles every hour. You start with 200 bacteria. To double a number, you multiply by 2. What would you multiply by to find the amount after 3 hours? Okay, so we're going to multiply it by 2 3 times, because multiplying it by 2 doubles it once. Multiplying it by 2 again will double that again. And then multiplying it by 2 again will double it for the 3rd time. So this bit is hour 1, this bit takes us to hour 2, and this bit takes us to hour 3. So what we're really looking at here is the single value that we're multiplying it by is 2 times 2 times 2, which is 2 to the power of 3, okay, which we can work out on our calculator, or you might know it anyway. 2 to the power of 3, here we go, we've got the handy cube button there, and that will equal 8. Okay, there we go, so equals 8. Right, question 4. A cube-shaped water tank holds 1,000 litres. What number multiplied by itself 3 times equals 1,000? Use a cube root to find the length of one side of the tank. Okay, so remember, if we have a cube has all sides the same length. Okay, and the volume of a cube is found by doing length times width times height. But in a cube, they're all the same. So it's actually like saying something cubed equals this. So we could actually just call them all the length. So the length cubed is equal to the 1,000 meters cubed. So the way that we find the length is by finding the cube root of this. Okay, so let me move this over here. So what we're looking for is we're looking for the cube root of the 1,000, and that's going to tell us the side length because we've got 3 things multiplied together that are the same. So let me do that here. Here is our cube root symbol, and then let's inside that stick the 1,000. Okay, and here we go. This is going to equal to 10. Okay, so each side length here is 10 meters. So if we did 10 times 10 times 10, we'd get to 10. Right, let's have a look at question 5. I'll roll that up a little bit more actually, so that we can see it above the calculator. Oh, I can't. Let me move the calculator a little bit down. Okay, question 5. You borrow £800 at a 10% interest each year, compounded. Okay, compound interest means that we're adding interest onto the interest. Okay, so it's going to say that we're going to keep multiplying by the same thing. Okay, right, so to increase by 10%, you multiply by 1.1. What would you multiply by? Well, 1.10. What would you multiply by to find the total after 3 years? Well, we'd have our 800, and then we'd multiply it by 1.10 once for the first year, and then again to find out the cost after the second year, and then again to find out the cost after the 3rd year. So basically we are multiplying by 1.10 to the power of 3. Okay, so let's work out what 1.10 to the power of 3 is. So here we go, clear the calculator, 1.10 to the power power of 3, and it's nice because we've got the cube button. Oh, I can put the O. You know, the O doesn't actually make any difference, but it's in the question, so I'm just going to roll with it. Okay, so here we go. 1.10 to the power of 3 is 1.331, and that is the answer, because they just want to know the multiplier that we're going to use to increase by 10% 3 years in a row. Okay, right, let's go on to the next set of questions, and this is our last 5 on here, so well done if you're keeping up. Remember, you're always welcome to pause the video, have a go and continue by yourself. Okay, let's have a look though now at question 6. So question 6 says, a square wall has an area of 50 meters squared. What is the square root of 50? Use this to estimate the length of one side. Round your answer to 1 decimal place. Okay, so we want the square root of 50 to find out the side length of the square. Okay, so here we go. Square root 50. Let's find out what that is. And there we go. This should be the side length of the square, because remember, the area of a square is length times width, where the lengths are all the same, so it's like length times length. Okay, so if I squared this, this should take us back to the 50. Okay, but that's not what I want. I want the root of 50. So here we go. I'm going to write this down. 7.071066781, and we want it to 1 decimal place. So this is going to equal, this is going to give us 7.1 to 1 decimal place, because if I was looking here, I've got 7.0, and then the next thing to 1 decimal place is 7.1, and in between those is 7.05. Okay, let me move that down. Oh, let me move this up actually. 7.05, and so 7.07 falls on this half here, because it's between these numbers. 7.07 would fall in between 7.05 and 7.1, which we could call 7.10. Okay, so that's why we're rounding it. That's why we're choosing to round up. Okay, right, let's look at question 7. Question 7 says, a cube has a volume of 27 centimeters cubed. Use the cube root to find the edge length. Okay, so again, we want the cube root this time. So this is the root with the 3, the cube root of 27. Okay, you might already know it. If you don't, let's find it out. Here we go. The cube root is equal to 3. And then just to prove that that's the case, 3 cubed equals 27. Cubed root equals 3. Cube it again, 27. And they're just going to bounce on because they are connected. Okay, right. Let's have a look at question 8. Question 8 says, a phone battery loses 20% of charge each year. To reduce by 20%, you multiply by 0.8. What would you multiply by to find the battery life after 2 years? Okay, so we'd multiply it by 0.8 for year 1, times that by 0.8 for year 2, and I believe that is going to be 0.06. Oh, no, it's not going to be 0.064. It's going to equal 0.64. Okay, and just to check that, we've got here 0.8 squared. Here we go. Yep, 0.64. Right, let's have a look at question 9 and then see how we get on from that. So question 9 says, square carpet covers 81 meters squared. What number squared gives us 81? Use the square root to find out. So they're asking, what is the square root of 81? You might know this by now. The square root of 81 is 9, because 9 squared equals 81. But let me not write this bit down because that's confusing. The answer to this question is very clearly 9, and it's meters. Okay, right. So let's have a look at question 10, and then that takes us to the end. So here we go. We've got a cube-shaped box has a volume of 200 centimeters cubed. Use this to find the length of one side. Give your answer to 1 decimal place. Okay, so undoing a cubed, it's a cubed box, so we want to cube root it to find out the length, the side length. So we're going to want to do the cube root of 200. Okay, and this doesn't have a nice cube number, so that means we are going to have to round the answer to make it possible to write down. So first of all, we're given this 5.848035548. These numbers would actually just continue on forever, okay? It's what's known as an irrational number, and that is when there is absolutely no pattern to this, okay? So for example, see after this 8, we get a 4 in this situation, but then after this 8, we get a 0. So it's not like we can use any of the numbers to predict what comes next, okay? And that's what makes it irrational, that you cannot predict it in any way, shape or form. But we do have a tutorial coming up on irrational numbers, so that will be happening soon. But let's first of all round this to 1 and then celebrate finishing these 20 questions. Okay, so we've got 5.8, so 5.8 will either round to 5.8 or 5.9, depending on what's coming after it. Okay, halfway between 5.8 and 5.9 is 5.85. Okay, we're looking at 5.84. So 84 is less than 85. So that means this number here that we've got falls on this side of our number line, which means to the nearest decimal place, the nearest 1 decimal place, it's closer to the 5.8. So I'm going to write here 5.8 cm to 1 dp. Okay, and then just underline that there. And that is that. Okay, if you are done with that, this was just out of interest. This is links to tutorial 73 on crackmaths.co.uk. Okay, if you want to get more resources on this, there's a tutorial lesson. There's it on this topic as well, and you can also find the question and answer sheets for this, or look at the next lessons that are coming. Okay, so anyway, thank you very much for joining me, and I will see you soon. Bye.